Berlin, are you there? Yeah, yes. That's exactly the spirit I'm looking for. So, what I'll be sharing today is how a mathematician like myself has a crazy plan on how to bring things to life. Yeah? So, at the end of the talk, we should have learned something about maths, something about life, and something about crazy. This is a baby. I know. You might be thinking like, wow, if that's your breakthrough in your research, you're not going really far, mate. Babies are cute. I love them. Have two of them. One just to come very, very soon. Babies are one of the most complex things people that you can come into contact. They grow, they develop, they learn, they're complex, they have feelings. We've been babies once. We can almost remember how it is to be a baby. And biology had its way on how to make them. I'm not suggesting that suddenly we have to make robots have sex, but what are the key ingredients that we should make to bring something like this little guy here, Pepper, to life? Do you think Pepper is alive? I don't think so. As a matter of fact, I would be very scared to be close to Pepper, even though Pepper looks really nice and cute. Why? Because he's hard, has a hard face, there's no soft parts embedded on it. Depending on the program, if I do something crazy, I don't know how Pepper is going to react. For example, if Pepper is here, I say, okay, Pepper, look, like a handstand, maybe Pepper will say, oh my God, I'm going to kill you. I don't know what's happening. So I don't trust Pepper. And how I think we're going to change this, going from very inanimate robot to something that is more like us. Yeah? So we start with complexity. And complexity, as the word says, is too complex. So I can't even start to think about complexity. Then, as a mathematician, you try to find what is the atom of complexity? What's the minimal amount of complexity that I think my brain can cope? I find the atom. Then I use a mathematical X-ray. What that is, basically, I make a mathematical model. I try to understand this atom of complexity. With the mathematical model, hopefully, fingers crossed, if you did everything right and, luck is shining on you on that particular day, you get understanding. With understanding, then you can write a minimal recipe of what are the set of interactions that you need to replicate the atom of complexity. And then with this recipe, this means that we can make things, we can make artificial things, and with this artificial being, we try to see how this compares with the original complexity we started with. And my life is mostly spent in this cycle. Most of the time, I get very lost. Few occasions, I have understanding, I can come out of that. So, very proud that mathematics has been, especially in my lab, has been now portrayed more widely in the news in society, and how the use of mathematics can help different branches in our societal roles. And today what I wanted to say is the atom of complexity for me, if I want to create something alive, I'll go to the minimal example, which would be unicellular organisms. Would you agree that these microorganisms here are alive, like ourselves? They are organic matter. They move, they make decisions, they replicate. One of them responsible for life. The other one is death, trypanosome on the other side, and everything in between. So I think we would agree that these things are alive, right? But at the same time, they are not as complex as the baby I showed before that has so many cells, so many functions, so many organs, so much complexity that is unbearable. Even where should we start? So let's take the sperm cell as our example. And right now, if we look inside the cell, this is what you see. This is a sperm cell inside. And you see a bunch of structures in the cross-sections, columns and rods connected with elastic linkages and motors. If I didn't tell you that this was a sperm cell and just showed this is an engineering structure, right? You would not think that this is something that is alive. But yet, inside this structure that is soft and squishy and bendy, you have something that we call motors, molecular motors, which are the same kind of motors that propel our muscles. You give them energy, and they do some work. Because inside of the tail, they try to slide one filament against the other, then instead of just passing through it, it generates bend. And that's how sperm cells are able to move. But as the atom of animation, this is the simplest set of ingredients that you could think that gives some animation to matter, that gives some animation to something that would be not alive in first place. So how we do this? And now that you know the internal structure, these are human sperm cells swimming in a fluid. And try to imagine that when you see, for example, this guy passing through, oh, this is happening inside. Do you think this sperm is alive? Or is something else? Is artificial motion? All due to a number of molecules and motors that are inside doing a work that the sperm itself doesn't even have conscience that this is happening, which is crazy. So, how we go on with the mathematics? Then this is usually the time that half of the people leave. Don't leave, please. I have cookies afterwards. Okay? Mathematical X-ray. We look under a microscope the movement, and we think, what? To get this movement, I need a body that has some softness, and I need motors to give the activity, otherwise nothing is going to move. And then the main aspect that I want to bring animation is that I can see the animation, I can see the motion, I know about elasticity in rods and how things are bendy, but I don't know how the internal structure is working. And I can't use a microscope to look at that because they're too tiny, just too tiny. So what do? You solve a mathematical equation. And this mathematical equation basically says that whatever is outside the structure, the forces that the structure feels, the sperm feels, is the same as what is inside. And this means that softness and motors combined will give you the animation. And solving this equation is basically saying that motors is going to be the environment minus the elasticity. And I solve this mathematically. When I solve this, I find this. And this is the highlight of the talk. Wait. There are surprises. These are traveling waves of contractions. Beautiful. Let me get out of this. Traveling waves of contractions. So we know that the motors are synchronizing in a way that is very intelligent, but that the cell is not really controlling each particular molecule. This is happening in a way that is organized by the structure. In a way that, like rowers, that when they synchronize, you don't need to keep telling your friend, come on, go a little bit faster, a little bit slower. You just feel it, and you go with the flow. And These stripes there that are in space-time, so these stripes are traveling waves, so are waves that are propagating along the tail in time and space. They really look like stripes, like zebra stripes. This gives me a hint, a mathematical hint, and that's the surprise. If you know this person or recognize, maybe you can recognize now in an imitation game, famous mathematician called Alan Turing, responsible for breaking the code, but also he gave birth to a whole field of mathematics that we call mathematical biology. In mathematical biology, he discovered that patterns in nature, chemical patterns in nature, can be formed by having two ingredients: molecules that will react with themselves, and molecules that can move around like diffusion. As a matter of fact, the fact that I have one head and 5 fingers, this is a Turing pattern. This has been decided in early stages of embryogenesis, which is where your embryo is deciding where to put the right places. So amazing breakthrough he had back in 1953. Now, if we use the same idea, what I have is reaction of motors instead, and I add with a little bit of diffusion of bendiness, I should get the stripes back. And this is indeed what happens, at least what the math that we do tells us that happens. So we can recreate animation, we can recreate something that is alive by using just very simple ingredients. There is one tiny problem. Molecular motors are very hard to find. So the other question is, if I want to make this as a robot, if I replace these molecular motors by just the motors that we have, will this still work? Or is this very specific to biological motors? And this is what we're trying to see. So I'll just skip that. So we put electric motors, because these are the motors that are at our disposal, in the same configuration that you'll find in muscles. Only to find that they will develop waves, they will synchronize in the same way that our muscles do, even though electric motors are far from biological motors. So what this is telling us is something absolutely beautiful, gorgeous, amazing. I don't know, that nature is using the same template to make patterns like shaping us, but also patterns of movement. It's using the same template, the same rules, the same cast, the same mode. And if we can decode this, this means that we can try to get a little bit closer to nature than what we thought before. And indeed, this is the case that we can replicate exactly the same behavior using motors that are artificial motors. So imagine now this is a motor unit like this. This will be a muscle unit, and that I can scale this to a giant robot that will have muscle-like activity like we do, but using the motors that we have at our access. So, I'm still very scared of Pepper, but I think with a little bit of maths, we can make Pepper look more like an organic being, and this is just the beginning of the tale. This is just the beginning of this story. And that's how it's so exciting to work in this field. And I would like to share that these are not the only projects that I work. Organic robotics, for example, you see in octopus and sliding robots with suction cups that have been inspired by biological entities, at the same time working in low-cost microscopes that will help schools and also clinics to make more fast and cheaper diagnostics. For example, this microscope costs less than 30 pounds, and anyone can print that. So it's huge democratization of science that is happening at the moment, and many, many other projects. So if you are interested, have a look in our webpage, and you see the fantastic breadth of things that we work on. And I would like to say thank you very much for the opportunity. Obrigado, as we say in Portuguese. And join us if you want to do a PhD. If you are if you are interested in funding and collaborations, get in touch, or even mathematical consultancy that we can work together. But this is the message I came to say, and hopefully you'll be more interested in mathematics or talking with mathematicians that they are not that scared. So see you.
Thank you. Big round of applause, please, for Hermes. If you have any questions, we're a small group. You can raise your hand and I can run towards you and give you the microphone, if anything off the top of your head. Or you can always, Slido's always there. I don't see any questions just yet. There's the QR.
Nice.
But yeah, feel free to...
Can I use this chair?
Feel free to shout anything out, of course.
Very
of course.
Nice.
Thanks for explaining. Thanks for the passion, for the energy, and for explaining such complicated topics in such a natural and simple way. It was really beautiful. So wondering, any questions out there? Let's see. Oh, we have one. Oh, you already saw it. Okay, that's hence the laughter. So in conclusion, will having real sex with a robot be a possible activity in the future?
Can I abstain from answering this? You shouldn't ask this for a mathematician, seriously. I don't know, really. I can make an equation, I guess. Would that be helpful?
How long would you need to make it?
It depends. You need to give him some time and coffee, which, by the way, coffee here is amazing, my God. I'm here.
And it's free, which is great.
I know, I'm going to have another one.
All right, I think we have time for... oh.
You have a question?
Go for it.
Absolutely. So the question was, do you think that emergent behaviors are possible with this type of machines? So the whole point of mathematics is that when there is a pattern, when there is an emergent behavior, that means that an underlying law is governing this pattern. And if there are a sequence of interactions that are governing this pattern, hopefully we can decode this with mathematics. And the idea is that you narrow down to the simplest unit. So you have something simple that when combined together, give emergent behavior that is complex, and as complex as we see in nature. So that's the logical path we do. But it's an absolutely beautiful path, because when you go down this road, you get faced with the beauty of nature, or how the building blocks of nature, and how, oh my God, like, you got me there, because I had no idea that you're doing this. And it's a quite intimate relationship you have, and I would definitely recommend. Keeps you very young, for sure.
Thank you, Hermes. We have two more actually. Let's see, you just answered this one. So, no, this one was answered. What's the implication for having robots that are soft and more smooth in movement?
So the implications. So one of the possible implications we hope is that we will be able to trust more robots, because if they are soft and they have emergent behavior, we know that these robots have been not necessarily coded in a template, and if you have a behavior, this robot is going to behave in a spontaneous way. So, for example, if I capture that, if I hold that, I'm not thinking the amount of force that is going here. This is resolved by my hand and the liquid. I'm talking to you guys. This is here. This intelligence is here. So whenever we have soft robots, this is going to revolutionize everywhere, because we're going to trust them, because they're not that scary. If they fall onto you, they're just softy, like cuddles, potentially. But at the same time, they have this intelligence embedded on that without needing this computer attached to them, That's the mystery.
I see. And Hermes, we have the last question, which is, what's the purpose of making things alive? There are already so many ways of life that we still don't fully understand.
Oh man, you got me. You got me. So the real reason for me was the mathematical path, was the end goal of making something alive is the result of a deep understanding of the beauty, untangling the beauty that you see in nature, in the nature world. So for me, this is always going to be the driving force behind. Um, but I can't just come here to tell you that everything I see is beautiful, right? Because you say, okay, but what the impact that is having in my life? And that's me trying really hard to tell you that there is an impact.
Hermes, thank you so much for joining the
Thank you.
stage. Big round of applause.
Thank you, everyone.